Have you ever thought about curriculum choices for, say, upper elementary when your children are only preschoolers? If so, we might have something in common. Hi, this is Rachel from 7 and All, and today I am going to be just talking about some curriculum daydreaming and future brainstorming, talking about curriculums I am considering for the future. And by future, I do not mean next year. I mean long distant homeschool curriculum future. This is really just a for fun video for people like me and people like you who like to think about, daydream, brainstorm curriculum options, look into them, even when it's not a curriculum that you would be using anytime in the very near future. And if you don't like to do that, you probably shouldn't watch this video. If that's not something that brings you joy, just go ahead and go watch something else. But if you like to chit chat about curriculum, stay right here. We're gonna have a lot of fun. I'll just be brainstorming. I'll organize this by subject. So I'll talk through different subjects and some of the curriculums that I am thinking about using in those different areas for the future. Now, the first thing I keep in mind when I am doing long-term homeschool daydreaming / brainstorming is that I am not going to change into a completely different person. Yes, life circumstances change. The circumstances in which we homeschool may change. We hope that our family will grow. We don't know what our life is going to look like down the road, but I also know I'm not going to change into a completely different person, and my children are not going to change into completely different people. They will change and grow and mature. There are some characteristics that tend to stay pretty constant throughout life. I have loved reading aloud since I could read, and I still love reading aloud. I'm always going to love reading aloud. So certain characteristics like that don't change. So when you are brainstorming for your future homeschool, do think that your circumstances may change, but who you are probably isn't going to change that dramatically. So if you don't like reading aloud right now, don't think that magically in the future you are going to like it. There are different things that we all like, that we all thrive with, different things that we're passionate about, different goals that we have, and those do shape our brainstorming. So I'm just saying, like, I keep those things in mind, that circumstances may change somewhat, but most likely who I fundamentally am is not going to dramatically change. Now, let's go through different subjects. First of all, math. Let's just might as well start with math, get it out of the way. We think about math a lot, right? You guys know I have been using Math with Confidence for my son, who's currently doing the kindergarten level. We'll be starting the first grade level soon. And at this point, from what I've seen with Math with Confidence, I'm just going to keep sticking with it and keep rolling with it as long as I can. It is a little bit more of a risky move to think about when the other levels of the curriculum have not yet been released, but I've loved what I've seen so far. I love the direction that it's going in so far. So, of course, you always gotta, all of these are gonna be held loosely. These are just ideas, but right now, my general idea is to just keep sticking with Math with Confidence, probably pulling in Math UC for just backup extra worksheet pages for now, and I don't know how long we'll keep that up. We'll see how long we want to. But for now, it works good to just have some extra math drilling practice. I feel like Math UC does plenty of good drilling, plenty of practice worksheets. Once we get past 6th grade, because Kate Snow is only planning to release Math with Confidence up until 6th grade, I don't know what direction we will go after that. My youngest sisters have done a combination of Math UC with Life of Fred, which has given an interesting, for their middle and high school years, which has given an interesting combination of just really straightforward, to the point, pretty easy Math UC, and then Life of Fred, which is not very straightforward. It is very creative, interesting, sometimes confounding and confusing Life of Fred. So we have like very different curriculums combining for an interesting math experience. That's my general math curriculum plan for the future. Next, English. I've talked about it before. For right now, we're still in the learning to read phase. And at this point, I'm just really focusing on phonics. I don't feel the need to bring in that many other LA elements when you're just getting down the foundations of learning to read. I believe in 1st grade we'll start implementing some of the other language arts elements, and the top curriculum I am planning on, and I actually already have right now, is First Language Lessons for the Well-Trained Mind. I actually bought an older edition of First Language Lessons, which is a hardcover, and it has 200 lessons in it. So when I've looked at the newer versions, it seems like they have 100 lessons. And I'm wondering if the hardcover I bought is actually the first 2 levels combined. If anybody has any experience with the older editions of First Language Lessons and the newer editions and wants to let me know what the difference is, I would be very happy to know. You can leave that down in the comments below. But I bought this book at a thrift store when I was in the US. It was $10. I was like, I feel like this is a deal I can't pass up. I was already interested in that curriculum. So that's my plan right now, and maybe that one book will bring us through basically 1st and 2nd grade as far as grammar, language lessons. I really like the approach. I find it pretty straightforward and will feel very sufficient at 1st and 2nd grade. And maybe we will continue the series with the other books beyond that, as long as that is working. Then, once we get into higher levels, there are a couple other options I'm considering. One is Winston Grammar. That is an oldie, but I would say a goodie. I used Winston Grammar back in the day, and I loved labeling every word with its part of speech and with its meaning, or with its function in the sentence. I do realize that apparently not everybody likes labeling every word with what part of speech it is and its function in a sentence. I realize that I don't quite understand it, because I thought it was absolutely delightful. Not everyone gets that same sort of delight out of grammatical labeling. I enjoyed Winston Grammar quite a bit, so that's one option I would consider. That is aimed at 4th grade and up, but I feel like it doesn't get talked about a lot so much in more modern homeschooling, but it's one we shouldn't forget that it exists. I really thought it was really solid. Another potential option is something like Abeka, which just has a really straightforward grammar book. You read the rules, you do the exercise, done. That's something I would consider if really you just want something, a nice quick worksheet, practical, get it done. That's an option. If I decide I want to introduce a writing curriculum in elementary, one that I've looked into and really liked a lot about was writing and rhetoric. I've looked at the samples of the first level and was definitely intrigued. I can be a little bit picky when it comes to writing curriculums. I can be a little bit of a free spirit when it comes to learning how to write. I think the impression I'm getting is perhaps writing and rhetoric might be a good blend of structured writing instruction plus that allows for a free spirit to use it. I would have to see it a little bit more to know for sure, but maybe if I feel the need for a writing curriculum, that's probably the direction I would lean towards. When it comes to spelling, I feel like I don't really have very many strong opinions about spelling at this moment, but I've seen Zahner-Bloser spelling connections, and I really liked the look of that one. I really liked all the word work that they are doing with the spelling words. That's one that definitely intrigued me, was Zahner-Bloser spelling connections. I don't have a particularly set option. I'm not really planning to do any actual spelling curriculum until at least 1st grade. During kindergarten and along with learning to read, we're already doing a lot of exercises with building words with tiles. I'm saying words to him and having him build these words that we're learning. So I feel like we are getting the foundations of phonics and spelling right now, but probably not until 1st grade would I start actually doing any spelling. And I feel like that's pretty typical. Next, science. And I think you've probably gotten this idea from some of my other videos, but this is one of the ideas where I am not really settled on one particular direction to take. Sonlight is definitely a strong option up there for me. I really like a lot about the many different elements in their program that combine. Like, I like that they have worksheets. I like that they have experiments. I like that they have just really cool and interesting books to read, and that they incorporate some biographies of scientists. So I think there's a lot of really good elements combining in there. There's also some things to like about Apologia Young Explorers. Some people don't like this. I do like the idea of staying on one topic for a long time and learning it really, really well. That's kind of what we're doing right now with our ocean science study from Gentle and Classical. And I like that we're really, really getting to just spend a long time diving in to the ocean and learning all about ocean stuff. So I like that idea of staying on one theme for a while. and there are different themes that I'd like to go in deep on, but we don't necessarily have to go in deep on every single science theme. So this is up in the air. I've also had Berean builders suggested to me multiple times by people who think that I would like it. I might like it. I would have to look into it a little bit further. I didn't think it was a good option to start right in kindergarten because I find that most curriculums that are aimed at K through 6 aren't actually that good for kindergarteners. They tend to be better once you get a little bit further higher up into that age range, especially when your oldest is a kindergartner. So that's one I've tabled to look into for the future as well. I'm also keeping my eye out to see what Gentle and Classical Nature Volumes 3 and 4 will be. I have heard that 3 is going to focus on a farm and agriculture related theme, and that 4 is going to focus on an earth science and astronomy related theme. So I'd have to see what those look like. I've really liked Gentle and Classical Nature 1 and 2 for my young sons. I'd have to see what 3 and 4 turn out to be like and if they come out at the right age for my kids for learning about those subjects. So science, I feel like, is a subject area where I'm like not super certain where I want to go. I definitely would love to do a deep dive into learning astronomy at some point. I think my boys would be really fascinated by that. Of course, you want to do earth science. Of course, you have to do anatomy. That's one science area that I'm like, can I just delegate this to my husband who is a nurse? That would be great. Not my favorite science topic. I like more of the earth science, physical science. Once we get up to chemistry, that'll be really cool. But I have a lot of options on the table, but I don't have a really specific direction yet regarding science. Next, for history, literature, geography, Bible, I'm combining all of those because probably whatever curriculum we choose, it will be combining those subjects. You guys know that I love Sonlight on here. But what might not be that obvious is that I actually really love Sonlight for the higher levels. Probably D and up is where I think Sonlight really shines. Once you get into upper elementary, middle school, high school, I think they really shine. I'm not as big of a fan of the younger levels, the A, B, C. They don't just seem to excite me quite as much. Last year, when Erin from Gentle and Classical first released the Sequence 1 preliminary guide, I quickly downloaded it and was looking at it. I was eager to see what all was in it, and as I was looking at it, I was like, there's a lot I really, really like about this. I was feeling pretty excited about using it. And so my plan right now, as of filming this video, she still has not yet released the full program, but as of filming this video right now, I am planning on using Sequence 1, and she is also planning on releasing a Sequence 2, 3, and 4. So depending on what those cover and depending on the future, but I've penciled in using Sequence 1 and following that up with what comes next, and then probably transitioning into Sonlight later on once it gets to the higher levels, perhaps starting in D. There are a few levels of Sonlight I really want to use, including J, which is the history of science. That is a completely new Sonlight level. Like, that was not one that was available when my family was still growing up and buying Sonlight levels. So I am very, very intrigued by that one. I want to read all those new books. But that's one I'm very excited about. I love their high school levels. F, which is Eastern cultures, I think would be really fascinating to get into. There's a lot of cool things up there. But I am kind of thinking for these early elementary years, we will probably just stick with Gentle and Classical sequences. And I'm already starting to pull books together for doing Sequence 1 and adapting it to fit my family. As far as where we are going with Spanish, you know that our family is a bilingual family. Some bilingual families want to have every element of education equal and be fully, have your math skills equally capable of talking about math in English as in Spanish, and be equally capable of talking about science in English as in Spanish. For me, I don't necessarily feel that pressure and that need. I do want my children to feel very comfortable in Spanish, have an emotional connection to it, have a connection to their Mexican heritage through their language, and be able to connect with other people who speak Spanish, but I don't necessarily feel that they need to have an equal education in every subject in every language. I know many, many bilingual people, and many bilingual or multilingual people use their languages in different domains, and they don't necessarily have equal language skills in every domain. So I don't personally feel that need or that pressure that fits our lifestyle. But I do want to continue weaving in Spanish at the level that we can throughout our education. So I do envision that we will be weaving in Spanish literature at a level that naturally fits us, weaving in learning how to read in Spanish, and just growing in our comfort level and our vocabulary and ability with using that. Llamitas, which I'm currently using, is going to be releasing a next level to their curriculum, which is meant for roughly 1st through 3rd grade. So I do plan that probably in 1st grade we will start using that next level of Llamitas, which I think is called Primaria Baja. And I'm excited and looking forward to that will be an easy thing that I can implement. I found out that Zaner Bloser offers their handwriting in a Spanish series called La Escritura. So to me, that seems like a really easy way to add in some extra Spanish practice and input, is because kids pretty much have to practice handwriting anyways. Might as well practice handwriting, which is copywork, using Spanish words, which gives the opportunity to practice those vocabulary words, practice that copywork writing, copying sentences, seeing the grammar right there. I feel like that's a really easy way to do that in the early and elementary years. And one of my tentative ideas right now, which we'll see how this plays out, but my husband is a high school Spanish teacher. He teaches Spanish as a foreign language, and he has the textbooks that they use for Spanish 1, 2, and 3. My idea is that maybe if we're raising our kids speaking Spanish, maybe by the time my son's around in 5th grade, he could start working through one of those textbooks with my husband, and maybe a lot of the vocabulary would be easy for him, but he would start to get like some official teaching on the conjugations, on grammatical rules, on the whys behind we do those different things. There are some useful things taught in those courses for sure, even if you do have a background in Spanish literature, conversation, but to get some of that. That's one of my potential ideas, depending on where we're at, thinking that if he has the background in Spanish, he wouldn't have to wait till high school to start going through those. Those aren't actually hard if you have a background in knowing the language, but they have those foundations. And then maybe that could be a subject that I put, hey, this is going to be your quality time between father and son to work through these textbooks, have the worksheets and typical. Now, for special studies subjects that aren't covered by core, I'm obviously not going to be planning out most of those years in advance because some of those will be definitely focused on the things that my sons have special interest in and special motivation to learn. But also, moms, we can pick things that are important to us that we really value and want to learn about. So I do have a few in mind that will be coming in probably mid-elementary. But one of those that I know I for sure want to do with my boys is elementary exegesis, which was written by my mom and published through Where'd You Learn That? Because I definitely want them to have the skills needed for being able to study the Bible, read the Bible, and understand it. Not just read the Bible and realize, this is really weird what this says. How can I understand it? To know that there is a way. So teaching exegetical Bible reading skills is important to me. We will be going through that course when they're old enough. And we will also be going through the Bible story, the history of the English Bible. In case you don't know, that was actually the very first homeschool curriculum resource I ever wrote. It is something I'm very passionate about, is making sure that our kids understand where the Bible came from. Because I feel like a lot of kids grow up with almost this mythical idea of where the Bible came from. They don't really know how we got it. How does the Bible that exists on our shelves today exist? What are the stories of the people who fought to preserve this word and to make it available in languages that we can read? This is a topic I clearly am very passionate about. It's something I want my kids to know. What's the story of this scripture that has been preserved from the days of the ancient Hebrew people up until now? And just how I think understanding the story and understanding the history helps you to appreciate the word all the more. So that's another resource that I will definitely be using. In case you haven't seen those, I will link to them down below in the description. Another special studies resource I am very interested in doing in the future is Living Legends, which is focusing on the history of Latin America. And I will link to that resource below. That was created by a homeschool mom who has a big focus on Spanish learning, language learning, and history of Latin America, and she found that that is a region of the world that it can be hard to find homeschool resources on, and I agree. And because my kids' family, they have family in Mexico, they have roots in Latin America, I'd like to do that. Also, that resource is designed that it can be done either in Spanish or in English. I would have to look into it more, but if we were able to do that in Spanish, gain some knowledge of the history of Latin America, and do that course, that's something I'm very interested in doing sometime in early elementary when my boys are old enough, when I have the chance to collect books to do that with. But those are just a couple of the special studies resources that I already have my eye on. So I feel like I've chatted long enough in this video about all these different curriculums that I've got my eye on for future years, things that I've brainstormed, that I've already looked at samples of. Let me know in the comments down below. Do you do this? Do you think about resources for like years in advance and where you see your homeschool going in the future, how you're going to tackle all the different topics within history and within science? Do you already have like a firm plan made, or are you kind of like me where you're considering a few options and then other subjects you're more settled and set in the direction you're going? Or do you make it all up year by year? Share with me what's your approach, or share with me, are you considering some of these curriculums for the future too? Do you have any experience and you want to share your experience with me? Let's chat, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.